Think you've got January Zander figured out? What if I told you that getting up before dawn is the biggest waste of your time this month? Today, we're talking about the one thing 99% of anglers get wrong: the real feeding time for trophy Zander in the dead of winter. Stick with me, and I'll show you why your thermos of hot coffee is getting cold for no reason, and when you actually need to be on the water for that fish of a lifetime. There's a specific window, often just an hour or two long, that most people completely ignore, and that's the reason their rods stay silent. So let me ask you right now, what do you think is the best time, dawn or dusk? Let me know in the comments before you watch the rest. I'm curious to see who already knows the secret. We all want to maximize our time on the water, especially in January. It's cold, the days are short, and you want every cast to count. Chasing trophy fish isn't about luck, it's about strategy. For decades, the gospel has been the same: fish early, fish late, the golden hours. We've had it drilled into our heads by our grandfathers, by magazines, by every fishing show on TV. And for most of the year, they're not wrong. It's habit, it's tradition. You get to the lake, see a dozen other guys setting up in the dark, and you think, this must be right. Nobody questions it because it's just how it's done. But in the dead of winter, that tradition is costing you fish, big ones. First, let's break down the morning myth. Picture the scene. It's 5 a.m. in January. It's brutally cold, the kind of cold that seeps right into your bones. You're out there, maybe on the ice or in a boat, and it is pitch black. You're telling yourself that the early bird gets the worm, right? Well, a trophy Zander in winter is not a bird, and it definitely isn't interested in wasting energy when the water temperature is just a few degrees above freezing. Its metabolism has slowed to a crawl. It's in full-on energy-saving mode. Wasting precious fuel to chase a small bait fish in the dark when the water is at its absolute coldest point of the entire day just does not make biological sense for a big, smart fish. It is conserving every last calorie, waiting for a much better, more profitable opportunity to feed. It's not that there are zero fish active at all, but the big, trophy-sized ones, the fish we are really after, are basically asleep. Think about the water temperature cycle over 24 hours in winter. The coldest point is always right before dawn. The water has had all night to lose any residual heat it might have gained during the day. For a cold-blooded creature like a Zander, this is a signal to shut down, not to hunt. I've been there myself, sitting for 3 hours, from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., watching my sonar. You see marks, sure, but they are glued to the bottom. They are completely inactive. They might as well be logs. You can drop the most perfect lure right on their nose, and you will get zero reaction. They are not in a feeding mood. They are in a survival mood. They are waiting for a change, a trigger. And that trigger is definitely not the increasing darkness giving way to a freezing cold sunrise. The fish know that conditions are about to get better, so why would they eat now? Another reason the dawn bite fails in January is the behavior of their food source. The small bait fish, like roach or perch, are also extremely lethargic in these cold, dark conditions. They are not schooling up and moving around actively. Instead, they are often scattered and holding tight to whatever minimal cover or structure they can find, also conserving energy. So, for a Zander to go on a hunt, it would have to expend a huge amount of effort for a very small, uncertain reward. A big Zander is an efficient predator. It does the math. It knows that a random chase in the dark isn't worth the calories. It's better to wait until the bait fish are grouped up and easier to ambush. It's a simple calculation of energy in versus energy out, and the pre-dawn hours in January just don't add up for a successful hunt. So you might be thinking, okay, I've had some success in the early morning. And you might have. But I would bet that those were smaller, younger, more aggressive fish. The smaller Zander have a faster metabolism and need to feed more often. They are the ones more likely to take a risk on a less than ideal meal, But we are not talking about catching just any zander. We are talking about trophy fish. The big, old, wise ones, the 15-pound-plus giants. These fish did not get that big by being stupid. They got that big by being incredibly efficient. They ignore the small snacks and wait for the main course. And the main course is not served at 5 o'clock in the morning in the dead of winter. So while your buddy might be catching a few small ones, the real prize is still waiting for its perfect moment. Now, let's talk about the other sacred time, the evening bite. This one seems to make more sense on the surface. The light is fading, zander have great low-light vision, and this is a classic predatory window for most of the year. So, many anglers will pack it in during the day and come back out for the last 2 hours of light, expecting the magic to happen. They set up, full of hope, as the sun dips below the horizon. They imagine the big zander waking up, stretching, and getting ready for a night of hunting. But once again, in the heart of winter, this is often a trap. The same core principle applies. As soon as that sun disappears, the temperature starts to plummet. Both the air and the surface water begin to cool rapidly. That rapid temperature drop at dusk is a negative trigger. The fish feel it instantly. Any slight warmth or stability the water had during the day is now gone. This signals to the zander that conditions are getting worse, not better. It is a signal to find a comfortable spot and shut down for the long, cold night ahead. Imagine you're sitting by a warm fire and someone suddenly throws open all the doors and windows on a freezing night. Your first instinct isn't to go make a sandwich. It's to huddle up and conserve heat. The zander are doing the exact same thing. They feel that temperature drop, and their internal clock tells them it's time to rest, not feast. The feeding window, if there was one, is closing, not opening. And again, let's look at the baitfish. Just as the sun is setting, the baitfish that may have been slightly more active in the midday sun are now looking for their nighttime refuge. They are dropping down in the water column and tucking into structure or deep holes. They become much harder for the zander to locate and target. So not only is the zander's own body telling it to shut down, but its food source is also becoming more difficult to find. The perfect storm of inactivity is brewing. I've spent countless evenings watching my graph, and it's like clockwork. You see some activity in the late afternoon, and then, as soon as the sun is gone, the screen becomes a desert. Everything just stops. It can be one of the most frustrating experiences in fishing. The only exception to this dusk rule in winter might be on a very specific type of weather day. If you have a stable, overcast, and unusually warm front moving through, the evening temperature drop might be less severe. In this rare case, you might get a short feeding window, but we are talking about the exception, not the rule. For 90% of your January fishing days, which are typically cold and clear or just plain frigid, the evening bite is a low percentage bet. You are banking on a tired, cold fish deciding to make an effort when all of its instincts are telling it to do the opposite. You can spend hours out there for maybe one lucky half-hearted bite. There is a much, much better way to spend your time. So if it's not dawn and it's not dusk, what is going on? We need to understand the mind of a winter zander. Its entire world has shrunk. The water is cold, its metabolism is slow, and its primary motivation is to expend the absolute minimum amount of energy possible. It's not actively hunting for long periods. Instead, it's waiting for a trigger. It is waiting for the one moment in the day when the odds are most in its favor. This is the key to everything. You have to stop thinking like a summer angler and start thinking like a cold, lethargic predator. Its life is governed by two simple things in winter: temperature and light. And those two factors create a very specific window of opportunity. Let's talk about temperature first. Even under a thick sheet of ice, the sun has an effect. On a clear, sunny day, solar radiation penetrates the ice and snow and ever so slightly warms the upper layers of the water column. We're not talking about a huge temperature swing, maybe only a degree or two. But to a cold-blooded fish, a 1-degree change is like you or me walking out of a cold room and into a warm one. It's a noticeable, significant shift. This slight warming can be just enough to kickstart a Zander's metabolism from off to standby. It doesn't mean they will go crazy, but it means they are now willing to consider the possibility of feeding. It's a subtle but critical change in their disposition. Now, let's add the element of light. Zander are famous for their excellent vision in low light, which is why the dawn and dusk theory is so popular. However, in the very clear water of winter, a high sun can sometimes be too bright for them in shallow areas. But in deeper water, where trophy Zander often spend the winter, the high sun of midday provides the perfect amount of light. It illuminates the depths just enough for them to see their prey clearly without being overwhelming. This light also stimulates the microscopic plankton in the water, which in turn gets the bait fish moving. The entire food chain wakes up, even if it's just for a short period. The sun is like the dinner bell ringing. So what happens when you combine these two factors? You get a peak. The water temperature reaches its daily high, however small that high might be. The light penetration is optimal for activating the entire food chain in the Zander's preferred depth zone. This combination of factors creates a perfect storm for a short, intense feeding period. The bait fish become more active and group together, making them an easy target. And the Zander's metabolism gets a slight boost, giving it the energy and motivation to take advantage of this easy meal. This isn't a long, drawn-out affair. It is a very specific, predictable window, and it happens right in the middle of the day. Here it is, the moment you've been waiting for, the secret window. In January, the prime time to target trophy Zander is between approximately 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Yes, you heard that right. Right when most people are heading in for lunch or thinking the day is a bust, the biggest fish are just starting to think about eating. This is the period when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. It's when the solar energy hitting the water is at its maximum. Think about it. It makes perfect sense from an energy conservation standpoint. The Zander rests all through the cold night and morning, and then takes advantage of the warmest, most active part of the day to get its meal. It is the definition of fishing smarter, not harder. I can see the comments already. You're crazy. I've never caught a Zander at noon. And that might be because you weren't fishing in the right places for a midday bite. The fish aren't necessarily in the same spots they use in the morning or evening. During this midday window, you need to look for areas that get the most direct sun exposure. For example, the north side of the lake, which gets southern exposure, might have slightly warmer water. Look for dark-bottomed areas or patches of dying weeds that absorb more solar heat. The Zander, and more importantly their prey, will migrate to these slightly warmer, more active zones. It might only be a difference of 10 or 20 yards from where they were in the morning, but it's a world of difference in terms of activity. Let me paint you a picture of this in action. A friend and I were out on a huge frozen lake. We had been fishing a deep hole from dawn until 10:30 a.m. with absolutely nothing to show for it. Not a single bite. Other anglers were packing up, complaining about how slow the fishing was. We decided to make a move. We went to a large flat area nearby that was only a few feet shallower, but had a darker bottom. The sun was high and bright. Within 15 minutes of setting up in the new spot, around 11:15 a.m., my friend's rod bent over. It was a massive 28-inch Zander. Over the next hour and a half, we caught 4 more big fish, all in that same zone. Then, like someone flipped a switch, the bite died right around 1:30 p.m. It was a perfect example of the midday window in action. This midday pattern is especially true on those cold, clear bluebird sky days. The days that most anglers hate. Everyone says fishing is terrible when you have high pressure and a bright sun. And that's true if you're fishing at dawn or dusk, but that high sun is exactly what creates the midday window. It's the engine that drives this whole pattern. So, the next time you see a forecast for a bitterly cold but sunny day, don't write it off. Instead, plan your trip around it. Sleep in, have a good breakfast, and get to your spot around 10:30 in the morning, ready for the main event. You will have the water mostly to yourself, and you'll be fishing during the highest probability period for a trophy catch. It's a complete reversal of traditional thinking. So how do you fish this window effectively? Your presentation needs to match the mood of the fish. They are awake and willing to eat, but they are still in a cold water state. They are not going to chase down a fast-moving, aggressive lure. You need to think slow and subtle. Large, soft plastic baits on a heavy jig head are perfect. You want to get the lure down to the bottom and keep it there. The presentation is key. Very small, slow lifts off the bottom, just enough to get the tail of the bait to quiver. Then let it sit perfectly still for 10, 20, even 30 seconds. The bites will often be incredibly light. It might just feel like a little bit of extra weight or a spongy feeling. They just gently inhale the bait. Spoons and blade baits can also be very effective, but you have to work them differently than you would in the summer. No aggressive ripping. Instead, use a slow lift and fall presentation. Lift the rod tip about a foot, and then let the spoon flutter back down on a semi-slack line. Most of the bites will come as the lure is falling. The flash and vibration can trigger a reaction strike from a Zander that might ignore a more static plastic bait. The key is to experiment. Try plastics for 20 minutes. If that doesn't work, switch to a spoon. The fish will tell you what they want, but the one constant is that the presentation must be slow and deliberate. You are trying to imitate a slow-dying bait fish, which is the easiest possible meal. Electronics are your best friend when targeting this specific window. A good fish finder or flasher is not just a luxury, it's essential. You need to be able to see how the fish are reacting to your lure in real time. Are they coming up to look at it and then fading away? That probably means your presentation is too aggressive. Are they ignoring it completely? Maybe you need to change colors or lure type. When you see a mark rise up to your lure on the screen, that is the moment of truth. Slow everything down. Give the bait a tiny, almost imperceptible shake. Hold your breath. That's when the bite will come. Without electronics, you are just fishing blind and hoping. With them, you're having a direct conversation with the fish. The final piece of the puzzle is patience and confidence. It's hard to break old habits. When you're on the water at noon and nobody else is around, it's easy to start second-guessing yourself. You'll start to think, maybe the old-timers were right. Maybe I should have been here at dawn. You have to fight that urge. Trust the science, trust the pattern. Understand that you are waiting for a very short window. You might fish for an hour or more with no activity at all, and then have 30 minutes of absolute chaos. You have to be ready for it. Stay focused, pay attention to your line, watch your electronics, and have confidence that you are in the right place at the right time. Because when that trophy Zander decides to eat, you need to be prepared. So, let's put it all together. We've thrown out the old rulebook that says you have to freeze your butt off at dawn and dusk in January. We've seen that the big, lazy trophy Zander are playing a different game. They're not wasting energy in the coldest, darkest parts of the day. The biggest takeaway, the real holy cow moment here, is that the best time to fish is often when everyone else is packing up for lunch. That short window, from around 11 a.m. to maybe 2 p.m., when the sun is at its highest, is your new golden hour. It warms the water just enough, it pushes the bait fish into predictable spots, and it triggers that lazy predator instinct in the biggest Zander. This changes everything. It means you can have a relaxed morning, get on the water when it's slightly more comfortable, and fish with a precise, targeted strategy. You're no longer just hoping for a bite. You're ambushing the fish during their most likely feeding time. It's about fishing smarter, not harder. Thank you for sticking with me through this one. I hope this blows your mind as much as it did mine when I first figured it out. If this video gave you a new plan for your next trip, do me a favor and hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because we're always busting myths here. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had success with a midday bite in the winter, or have you always been a dawn and dusk angler? Let's get a real discussion going in the comments. I'm curious to hear your stories.